Our JW Patek sir is from Pune. He has also come on the call.
Right. Yes, he's been in touch with me.
Yes, sir. So how are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you. A few medical issues up and down, which is probably par for the course at this age. Well, but otherwise, well.
I also served Indian Air Force during 1978 to 1993 in the trade of RTO, radio telephone operator, telecommunications.
Right.
So in fact, I am so grateful to Air Force because of my joining into Air Force. So it transformed me just like anything. So I remain grateful to Air Force for giving me wonderful life.
Yes, sure, absolutely. I share your sentiments, and I think this is what the Air Force has done for each of us.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So, and we have with us one of our so many amazing air warriors who joined as an airman later on. In fact, went on to become like one of our Rajendra Singh ji is on the call, sir, from Delhi. So he has become a general manager of an IDBI bank.
Oh, I see. Wonderful.
Still serving. And yes. I would like to share with you some of our airmen have become MLAs, MPs, IAS officers, IPS officers. Now today, in fact, I am so fortunate. I am going to meet Mr. Jayaraman, the erstwhile Corporal of Air Force. Now he is serving in Kolkata as an additional DGP, Director General Police.
Oh, I see. How nice.
So, that is the greatness of Air Force, in fact.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
So
absolutely
we have other people like one of them, of course, many are there into the one more Venkatraman from Chennai. He is also in the same cadre, additional DGP, and likely to become even the DGP also in due course. That is the highest thing. And so some of them have become vice chancellors, sir, about 3 people.
Amazing, absolutely.
And one of them even has become Judge of a High Court is from Goa.
I see.
Kapil Surendra Desai. Panwar, sir, HR Panwar from Jodhpur. So soon he completed 15 years of service.
And then
immediately
joined law.
Practicing in the High Court. And within 18 years, he became a judge of a High Court and retired after serving for 11 years.
Superb. I think what we need in our country today is a lot more ex-service men to be occupying positions so that we can revamp our structure from within, because it is very difficult to just depend on the vote. We really need people who can occupy these positions, and I'd be very, very, in fact, keen to interact with them to find out how difficult has their journey been in trying to enforce the kind of discipline that we have learned in the Air Force or in the services, and how easy or difficult is it to apply it to normal life outside civilian life, especially in the administration of the country. So it's a very interesting question, and I think all of us will benefit a lot to hear from these gentlemen who have, through sheer dint of hard work and application, have been able to occupy these high positions. And if their journeys have been, shall we say, I'm sure it must have been very difficult and a lot of adjustment must have been needed, but it would be a very inspiring story for a lot of others who are equally intelligent. And I must say that all of us in the services are very, very intelligent people. And I think the country will stand to gain a lot if a lot more can join these services.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. That is I can only call it a power of association, the kind of environment we have in the service. So be it officers or even men, seeing each one and getting inspired and getting motivated. and always striving to get extraordinary success, and people are succeeding extraordinarily also because of that environment.
Yeah. Because where we've come from, we've innovated on the fly.
Yes,
We've
sir.
always been short of support, but we've somehow achieved our aims. So, which is
Sir.
very creditable, and which is
Yes, sir.
what today's world needs, actually.
Yes, sir.
TBR.
Yeah, Acha, now we have on the
would like
call,
to
sir, apart from Junior Warrant Officer, Patek sir, then we have Brigadier Ajit Apte, sir. So he's of great help to all our air warriors to give from the ground perspective what all happened even during 71 war. Welcome, sir, Brigadier Ajit Apte, sir. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. So, sir, meanwhile, you can, in our Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma sir is on the line, sir, now. Just you can interact, sir, before we start. Apte, sir.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Very well, Brigadier Apte. Thank you very much. I'm very well.
For the audience, this great person, Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, and I were together in the same squadron in the NDA.
Oh, Acha, okay.
And we are very, very dear friends. He's a very senior, dear friend of mine.
Okay.
And a very distinguished person.
Fantastic, sir. I think you would be able to help us to get some of the highlights of his story. So, yeah. So now, can we start, sir?
TBR, let me welcome him.
Yeah, please.
Sir, very much warm welcome to you on the group. After a lot
Thank
of
you, Patek
problems,
sir.
we had number of times we had to change the meeting, but nothing, it is never too late. And we are all very happy to welcome you, and very much warm welcome to you on our group.
Thank you,
And
sir.
look what
Thank you.
we have been very eagerly waiting for this occasion. And today it seems to be the auspicious day when finally it could come through.
Yes.
So you can start with your initial Air Force life, or how you joined Air Force. And our main focus will be your spaceship, how your experience there. That is the unique thing about you. And people are very, very eager to hear that from our mouth.
Yeah, before sir, I'll just make an introduction of our Rakesh Sharma, sir. So with his permission. So now I welcome all our air warriors onto this special call. Now we are going to listen to our legendary pilot of Indian Air Force, the first man to go into the space in India. That is Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma Garu, then Ashok Chakra and hero of Soviet Union. And he joined in Indian Air Force in 1970 as a pilot. And he flew 21 combat missions of MiG-21 in Bangladesh war in 1971. And in 1982, he was selected as a cosmonaut for joint Indian space flight. So on 3rd April 1984, he flew on board Soyuz 211 with two cosmonauts, Commander Yugi Malishev and flight engineer Kennedy Strevaka-Low, to space station Salyut 7. Performed experiments including photography India from space, and also exercises to study the effects of yoga on the body during weightlessness. So his mission lasted almost 8 days, that is 7 days, 21 hours, 40 minutes, and landed back on April the 11th, 1984. So in 1987, Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma joined the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited as chief test pilot, and later on he became chairman of board of automated workflow. It's a process-based company in Bangalore. His mission is known as Intercosmos, and he was selected, in fact, along with Group Captain Ravish Malhotra, so who only stood by as a standby for him. And fortunately, our Rakesh Sharma Garu went into the space. So now I would like to, sir, say, firstly start with the Air Force life briefly, thereon take on to that to space.
Well,
So I feel it's a
firstly,
great privilege for me to interact with you, sir.
thank you, sir. And I salute all the air warriors who are presently tuned in onto this program.
Sir.
And I wish to acknowledge everybody's, shall we say, contribution to our great service, the Indian Air Force. As far as if I were to talk about my own journey getting into the Indian Air Force, I started very early because although I was born in the north of India in Patiala, but my education was in Hyderabad,
Oh,
and
Oh,
where I lived very often in the early 50s, one saw the vampire fly in the skies. It was the first jet aircraft which the Indian Air Force had procured. And what made it very different was the fact that, unlike the propeller driven aeroplanes of those days, this was a jet engine and it had a whistling sound. So I was very captivated by it, 6, 7 year old. And there was a cousin of mine who had joined the Air Force and who got commissioned at Begumpet. But he had taken the fighter stream, and a month after his commissioning, he lost his life in a vampire accident. But before that, he made me sit in the vampire cockpit, and I was so enamored of all the dials and the controls which were in front that I had made up my mind that given a choice, I would rather be in that aeroplane flying. So that became my dream, and God has been kind. Although I was not a very, very intelligent and an exceptional student in school, but since I was hung up on this dream, I did manage to clear all the exams and the interviews which were required, and so I joined the National Defense Academy in 1966 January. And after 3 years at the National Defense Academy, which is really where all the boys grow up into being men and learning the ethos of the Indian services, that is service before self. And we also learned at that time how to pace ourselves to be able to deliver when the chips are down, you see, rather than burn ourselves out in trying to where to conserve energy and where to give it all that we have. Now, these were the early lessons, which later on, after joining the Indian Air Force, I got commissioned in 1970, as was just mentioned. And I've been very, very lucky in my Air Force career that I managed to get selected to fly the supersonic MiG 21. And in fact, before my 23rd birthday, I had already completed 21 missions during the Indo-Pak War of 1971. So I was very fortunate. And after that, I got another 4 or 5 years, I got selected for the test pilots course. I spent about I spent a full 20 years in the Indian Air Force, shall we say, the duties that were entrusted to me. And
sir.
during this particular period, I was again fortunate to have been selected for the Indo-Soviet space flight in
Sir.
1982 of October. And we both group captain, who later retired as Air Commodore, Ravish Malhotra and myself,
Sir.
moved to Star City in Moscow for
Sir.
our training.
Sir.
The training went on for 18 months for this 8 day flight. The difficult part of the training, I would say, apart from physical training, which we all enjoyed because we were from a service background and we liked supreme physical condition and we were fond of sports and outdoor life. That was not very difficult, but learning all the technical stuff in a foreign language, Russian, that was the
Sir.
challenge. However,
Okay.
because of the fact that we were test pilots, usually it is considered that space flight is really an extension of military aviation. Therefore, it was I would say the gap was not very difficult to bridge at a technical level if
Sir.
one could overcome the deficit in foreign language. And so we did manage quite well, I thought. And after about 6 to 8 months, we were split up into two crews. Ravish was with one crew, which was the backup crew, and
Sir.
I was with the other crew, which was the main crew. And we did a lot of work on the simulator. Basically, the simulator was a procedures trainer, unlike the simulators we know today in civil aviation, which are, you know, 6 degree of freedom. These were static simulators. They were procedures trainers where one
Yes.
could practice and become comfortable with the launch sequence as to what would happen, how it would happen, stages one, two, three, and then how you get inserted into orbit and how these control happens while in establishing orbit, then how you go and dock with the laboratory, which was already orbiting the Earth, and then you transfer into that laboratory the Salyut 7, and we were trained to handle a whole lot of equipment which was designed by Indian scientists and which was manufactured by Indian organizations, DRDO, HAL, and all. And we
Okay.
used those instrumentation for our medical experiments. Experiments were all based on pure science. One was, of course, Earth resources imagery, where we captured the entire length and breadth of the landmass. Basically, this photography was a multispectral photography, and it would give us a lot of information about, shall we say, how much of snow is available in the mountains, so how much of water will be available for irrigation the following year, what are the coastline and where is plankton growing in which part of the coastline, so that
So powerful, sir.
fisheries.
So powerful.
Yes, so you see, each object on Earth reflects the electromagnetic spectrum in a certain frequency band. So
Okay.
the sensor, which is in this camera, multispectral camera, is capable of taking not really a visual image, but the frequencies which are being returned from the ground.
Okay.
So frequency sensitive uh, across the spectrum of
Okay.
the electromagnetic spectrum. So
Mhm.
once you have got that, and if you consider that to be the so-called negative, then what you can do is that on the ground you can fly your aeroplanes, shall we say, over with the sensor, which is not as powerful, or does not have is not as fidelity wise is not as good, but it will be able to tell you in which frequency band, shall we say, the forest is reflecting chlorophyll. You see,
Oh,
so you
okay.
will know that. So now what happens is that when you come back with this kind of image, you feed a different color to different frequency bands. So you know that if it is green, it's called a false color composite. So if it is, say, purple, it's got iron ore in that area. If it
Okay.
is green or whichever color you decide, it's a false color composite. So you give those codes and you come to know what is where and how much of
Okay.
the landmass is covered by it. So this is great information, and
Sir.
it became the database for our own remote sensing satellites, which were launched later. So that
Okay.
was in the Earth resources uh, region. There were others, and we did experiments in the material sciences region. We tried to grow a crystal of silver and germanium. Basically, it was the advantage of growing a crystal in space is that the structure of the crystal is perfect because of the lack of gravity. If you grow a crystal on Earth, what happens is due to the presence of gravity, the lower portions get a bit deformed because of the weight of the melt which is there. So
Okay.
while it is cooling and becoming a crystal, the structure at the base, due to the weight of the melt on top,
Hmm.
is not perfect. Whereas in space, when there's no gravity, then it becomes a perfect crystal. So that, plus in biomedicine, how does the heart behave in zero gravity? So there were experiments like this which we carried out, apart from, of course, interviews and showing the people all the how the Earth looks from space, etc. So these were live broadcasts which I carried out. And
Sir.
after 8 days, returned back to Earth and returned back to India and came posted to air headquarters. And then within a year, I wanted to get back to my career in the Air Force. So I was posted as a flight commander in Ambala in a Jaguar squadron.
Okay.
And then the Tejas program was being thought of, and HAL wanted some test pilots from the Indian Air Force,
Sir.
and so I had volunteered for that because I was wanting to be on the Tejas program.
Okay.
It was cutting edge and it was something new. 3.5 fourth generation aircraft, fly by
Sir.
wire, and there were new technologies. So so I left the Air Force. I got out of uniform, but essentially I continued to work for the Air Force because in
Okay.
HAL I was testing aeroplanes
Hmm.
which were being manufactured by HAL. While at the same time, when I went from Nasik to Bangalore, I was on the Tejas project, on the LCA project, and I worked for about 7 years on the LCA project. But then I crossed the age of 50. The project got delayed due to various reasons. And
Sir.
then it was time for me to get out of the cockpit. And then I decided that if I'm not going to be flying, I wasn't at all keen on doing civil flying, civil aviation. So I switched to IT, and I learned what IT was all about, because IT sector by that time was really opening out. Foreign companies were coming in. So I joined an Indian company first and later parametric technology based out of Boston, because they had a product life cycle management software which helped in the manufacturing of defense equipment. And since I was the end user of defense equipment, and since I had had the experience of working in the industry, that is HAL, and since I had a smattering of IT knowledge, I got picked up by parametric technology, because their software was used for the manufacture of the space shuttle, for the manufacture of tanks, for the manufacture of submarines and things. So because it's what the system really does is does an inventory control, because by that time in the West, the concept of distributed design and distributed manufacture had started. So designs were being done. Some country was doing some part of the design, some other country, some other part. And, these designs would then get collated and the manufacturing would begin again. The wing is being made somewhere else, tailplane somewhere else, the wiring somewhere else in some other country, looming, and all of it is brought together and assembled at one place. So it was necessary during the test flying or later on, when some changes during the test program required some changes in design, that those design changes are communicated to all those. With that software, all different design teams or different manufacturer teams would receive the drawings at the same time as soon as they are approved, so that there is no confusion. And when these little design packages or manufactured packages would come for integration or assembly, there were no problems. So it could Otherwise, there used to be a lot of wastage of time that, they're working on the old drawings, whereas designers moved forward. So I worked there again till I was 60, and I decided after 60 to actually retire. But then I was invited to chair the board of the first Indian company which I had joined, IT company,
Sir,
and I chaired that board for 10 more years. But at age
my God.
70, then I finally said enough is enough, and
Sir,
I've come here to Kunur, and I've been here now for
okay.
12, 13 years. So that's
Okay.
been my story. And
Oh, so and what an amazing story, sir. Really. So I think I think you are the only one unique person in the entire Indian Air Force all these years. So
yeah,
to,
very fortunate. I
yes, sir.
was very
Yes,
fortunate.
sir.
But sir, you are still active because last meeting was cancelled because you are called to ISRO again. So you are not retired
Yeah,
really.
well, yeah, I'm on the National Advisory Council for
Sir.
Gaganyaan. And so whenever the meetings take place, and there are four astronauts under training, Indian astronauts, all are test pilots of the Indian Air Force. And they are
Okay.
currently starting the simulator sessions in Bangalore. So I do keep interacting with them. I do interact with the designers who are designing systems for the Gaganyaan project. So whatever I can contribute, it's my privilege to do so.
We are proud of you, sir. We are proud of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, yeah, the great words when our Prime Minister, the then Prime Minister was asking you, how does India look like when you said, Sare jahan se acha Hindustan hamara. I think that's no, for such an
Yeah.
inspiring words those days.
That
So,
every Indian is still remembering those
yeah,
words.
Yeah, yeah. So when we were in school, we used to sing that song by Muhammad Iqbal
sir.
very often. So when I first saw India from space, you'll be surprised that see, we were only 500 kilometers high at that time. And
Okay,
when you look down, there is no pollution. So you're above the pollution.
okay.
So everything is in very sharp relief. So the coastline is very clearly visible, the blue of the ocean. So there are color changes which happen. And you're flying from one southwest coast all the way up to northeast India. So depending on which window you're looking through, you're seeing some part. So you're seeing the ocean, the coastline, the Ghat section, which is a different color. Then you come to the Deccan Plateau, which is brownish. Then you go towards Madhya Pradesh, which is again dry. Then you go towards, look left, and you're looking at the deserts of Rajasthan,
Rajasthan. Okay.
which appear golden. And then you look from the right window, you are approaching Assam. You look at the forests, tropical forests, which are totally green, lovely rivers. You look at the mountains, the Himalayas, which look
Himalayas.
purple from that height, snow-capped peaks, right? So it's a beautiful sight. And so what came to my mind was
Fantastic words. And so, at what speed were you flying, sir, at that point in time? I mean, when you say you are flying at 500 kilometers.
yeah, yeah. So the forward velocity was 7.4 kilometers per second.
My
My
God.
God.
Okay.
So you see, it's like this. If you can imagine a stone tied to a thread, and you start turning it around,
Sir.
okay, it will start going parallel to the ground at a
Yes.
certain
Uh-huh.
rate. So
Right.
the faster you turn it, then it will, stabilize at that. And that thread is the gravitational pull of the earth, which
Yeah.
is
Okay.
keeping you in that circular orbit.
Okay.
Okay. So it is invisible, but that is one of the forces which is preventing you and keeping you in that orbit around the earth.